I like the fact that it's real. There's tangible stuff that's taking place today within the digital transformation world. I like that a lot. And so I'm going to, for the people out there, remember, just put in your questions. Ask these. You don't want to hear me yammer on, but I do have some questions that I would definitely like to ask and get the panel sort of rolling and thinking about it. The first one, and it's always one that I'm always interested in. What are the challenges aligning process and production line specific transformations with the objective of digital transformation at the enterprise level? Daniel, what are the challenges? Talk to us.
I think our main challenge has been this mindset issue away from, hardware improvements, and some let's just put out a new piece of equipment and make the customer have to learn a new process and a new system and train everybody, to really more focusing on what the customer is actually doing, what are they doing now and what problems are they having, what do they struggle with. And it's an ongoing effort to communicate with other parts of our company even, but realizing that we can solve a lot of these problems together. This AI inference model that I gave from Metal Spectre, we're actually using that basic AI model in other, in pharmaceutical issues, looking at sheets of plastic material and things like that. So we're showing that it's useful in other parts of the business, but really going back to saying, okay, you need to look at how the customer is using it and what are their pain points, not what fancy new piece of equipment can we build and sell them.
And I'm going to sort of expand upon that. Do you find there's some internal culture type of resistance just because, oh, we've been there, done that. We didn't succeed at that. This is just another thing that we're going to have to try to, deal with. But, the information's out there. There's a lot of suboptimal implementations. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so and that's why I'm kind of working. I try to work with our Japan team, our U.S. team, and Europe, and we're forming these cross-functional teams across all of Toshiba and all these different operating companies to really tell these stories and show these examples and say, here's what we did, here's what worked, here's what didn't. And so and it's internal communication as well as communicating to your customers. Now that might not be a big deal for a smaller company, but it is a challenge for us. That's certainly a real thing. So we have to continually show the value of these white sheep, internally as well as externally.
The reality is that, and this is to Eddie's point, digital transformation is here to stay, and either you're in the game or you're not going to be in the game. But Sam, do you have anything to add to that particular question?
Yeah, I mean, what you end up having as a situation is that you have the digital transformation initiative at the enterprise level that is driven by a C-level person with a vision, etc. And then at the same time, you have coming up from the bottom, tactical projects, local within factories, within departments, and so on. And these meet somewhere in the middle, and Daniel referred to them at meet in the middle. We call them middle out. It's all the same. So these have to meet together, and there is a lot of sausage making that happens here in the middle, which is how do you align these tactical projects with the overall vision, and how do you make sure that when you are in meetings, those people in the tactical projects are not looking at the exit door because they don't want to be in the meeting, because they don't want to change what they are doing. So you have these cultural differences and challenges that you have to meet. Another challenge is how do you make sure that these tactical projects are meeting the ROI objectives and the overall objectives that suit the overall strategy, because meeting those objectives will be key for the CFO to give you money for the next project, and so on and so forth. So all of this activities has to happen somewhere in the middle by the program team.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it always gets down. I think technology is technology, but it does get down to the human element of that.
Absolutely.
Giuseppe has a question for you, Bassam. I would be interested to know from you which, in the present case, presented cases, there can be hidden a black sheep. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, a black sheep is an ongoing project that may have started before you started with your strategic initiative. And black sheep projects are projects that cannot be adapted or adjusted or changed to support the overall strategy. And one important task initially during the project is to inventorize the ongoing projects that are labeled as digital transformation and go and interview the people leading these projects and understand the overall objectives and try to map them. And there is a lot of pragmatism involved here. Do you let them continue? Do you stop them? Can you stop them? Etc. And there is lots of politics involved within the organization about who owns these projects and whose baby is it.
Yeah, that approaches. Eddie, I've got a question for you. Speaking of the black sheep, you've got this pretty robust example for Carnival. Did they have any sort of these black sheep that sort of hung out there that you had to identify in that particular project?
I'm quite sure, but to be honest, I'm not in the liberty or position like I sort of talk about it. I'm quite sure that's like something that they don't actually advertise much there, right?
But they exist. But they exist.
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty much across the board.
Yes,
It's a big organization. A lot of things I could try it out, but you know, to a degree, to think about it this way, the black sheep is not too bad if you actually manage it properly. In a sense that there's a lot of innovation sometimes that could happen bottom up, right? But you just don't have like a sort of mushrooming wild and actually out of control completely. So it's like a sort of how to like a sort of balance that things. Like there's a lot of things that you can learn, but then reconstitute, like Bassam said, into a white sheep if you actually want to, right? But how to like a sort of evolve that and who is like a sort of driving that is a very complex situation there. But I'm quite sure there's a lot of things that
it's always human. It always gets down to that. It's always people embracing it, want to do it, and moving forward. I got a question, and we've had this conversation a number of times. This whole IT/OT convergence, there's a divide. Chaisung, can you sort of expand a little bit about that transformational journey from an OT, IT? How do we get everybody to sort of, come hand in hand and do what they need to do?
This IT and OT divide or conflict is a major problem in the implementation stage. Even though you have a really good strategy, even though you have really good resources, your project or program will get stuck because of these conflicts. Then what shall you do? I mean, they do not talk to each other. They do not want to, but even though they want, they speak in a different language, and also they talk on the basis of wrong assumption. So that is the main problem, and my colleagues have been suffering about it. And the way forward would be we could learn from best practice. Like if you look at GE and also Bosch, they have a certain kind of a frame or tool called the FastWorks or MVP as a service, which could guide you to talk to each other in a certain process, very explicitly defined process on the basis of stage by stage. So that would be a good way of solving that problem. And the other way is in Korea, we have a big company which could start a smart factory project, and he could find the big problem of the conflict of these two kinds of people. And he could come up with the idea of a curator. He thinks that especially in the manufacturing company, you need a curator who knows not only about IT, but also knows about OT. But the problem is, sometimes you don't have that kind of people. So the issue would be, again, how could we make the process which could integrate the two people in the process of ideation and also creating a solution and also prototyping and implementation. So I think that is a very good aspect. Yeah. I'd rather stop here and
Marcellus, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, the IT, OT, this is always a common, not always, but in many companies, a culture discussion challenge. So the IT people think we know everything about security and we just tell you how you implement it. The OT people, they say everything, we know everything about processes and safety. And when you come with your security, I tell you that doesn't work. So you have to sit together and understand both sides. And when the safety is something no one knows in the IT. Yeah, when you look for a safety logo in the IT, you have to open your computer and try possibly on a power supply a UL logo. That's the only safety where people talk in IT. Where in OT, hardly anyone talks about security. They say, oh, security, we have a lock here, we have a safe here, we have some locks here, we have fence around, no one comes in. They say, wait a moment, talk about wireless security, Wi-Fi, and say, oh God, I don't want to hear that. Yeah. So this culture change can only be worked by, I would say, both sides understand well, and that's why we have in the IIC this trustworthiness. I don't want to go in any detail.
Yeah.
We see security, safety, reliability, which is a very important business thing. Yeah, the business people just say just let it run. Yeah, reliability is the main point. And then you have the resilience when something really falls apart. And finally, also privacy. We had before some questions about this Carnival experiment. How is privacy handled? Yeah, so privacy had also a fixed aspect. Yeah, so even in the deepest production line where you say we never have any private person come in here, you have suddenly challenges and people say, I have to log in and log out. Everything is recorded. And now people told me you didn't work long enough. You log in or log outside, see you cheating your work. Yeah. And I say, wait a moment, is this now security or safety, or is this just my job? Yeah. So this stuff needs to all be solved, and IT/OT convergence will be, I think, the big challenge we will come over finally.
Yeah. Again, it gets down to people, and let's talk about leadership. Bassam, what do we need? What type? It again, we've got all of this technology out there. It's all great and wonderful, but it gets down to being able to deploy it. That's a human interaction. It's conversation. That's collaboration. It's like IIC and finding the education that is necessary to be successful at it. What do we need? What type of leadership are we looking at?
Well, digital transformation is a team sport. It involves multiple stakeholders that are in different departments, different organizations, and there needs to be a leadership that is properly mandated from the top and empowered. This is not a please do this. This has to be stronger than that to be able to move things. And ideally, you want a leader who is also an executive level, who is empowered by the executive sponsor who's paying for the initiative to form a team of these stakeholders and continuously manage the communication up the food chain and down the food chain, and manage this bottom up and top down efforts and perform the middle out type of activities. So that's the kind of leadership that is needed. It could be a CTO, it could be a person in the CTO office, etc. The titles will depend on the organization and on the size of the organization. It could be a full-time person or a part-time person. But you will need that individual who have business and technology experience and the ability to manage this cross-functional team and understand and be able to speak in the language of these individual stakeholders.
Marcellus, add.
Yeah, I mean, the digital transformation in the normal industry, we talk here specific about the industry with makes processes, but in the normal industry, think about your accounting. Yeah, we have digital transformation since 60 years, and there was enough bosses, they ignored all that, and they said, "Oh, we don't need computers. This is such a stupid thing." That was in the 60s very popular. Later, and later we had other challenges like quality processes, yeah, ISO 9000, where people said again, oh, they just create a lot of paper, we don't need that. And when you're looking today where we're standing, all these companies with this blocking, they disappeared. When you had there were companies in the 60s, they were very successful in mechanic engineering and designing great products. And when then in the 70s, the microprocessor came, everyone said, do you have an electronic variant of your product? And people say, we don't need that. This is not working well. We have so much trouble. We don't want it. We are a mechanic company. And all these companies have disappeared today because they didn't follow the trend. And I see the same again today in this in the world of manufacturing. Sorry, that was spam. Manufacturing, in energy production, in so many other things where you see you can create a lot of data. You have to digitalize this data. You have to learning to managing this data to have a new business model that you can optimize your process first. You learn quicker when things likely derail, so your maintenance get better. You have a better communication to your customers. You have a better communication to your supply chain, whatever that is. Yeah? All this needs data, who is management in your company well on the OT side. I'm not talking about the accounting. I think everyone get that. And this is a big opportunity. And when management ignores that, they should actually know I'm risk the future of this company.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think that Lionel has a good question here, and I agree. You know, we hear a lot about, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, and it sort of shifts toward the bad and the ugly. Lionel has this question: given the complexity, yes, and the number of stakeholders for a digital transformation project, a lot if they want to do it right. There must be cases where some of them fail. Yes. So I wonder, what are the top 2 or 3 reasons it fails? Eddie, can you sort of jump in on that one?
Yeah, so this actually one thing that's actually really key is actually when actually we create, like say, POC as an example, right? So I can sort of get things started, is that the proof of concept is actually such a big gap between what actually they have versus actually when actually want to be scaled, right? So the proof of concept actually is seriously simplified to the point that it's actually useful in a small case, but then it's not scalable or not deployable, what have you, right? That's actually the most common one that I see, especially in the context of, say, security. Because, you know, when you do a proof of concept, you want actually to be able to, you know, do that quickly, small enough, so you can actually try it out. But then a lot of the proof of concept becomes so simple to the point that that's actually, say, big leap to the actual full-scale deployment later on, right? And whatever proof of concept, not a whole lot of value there. That's actually, I would see that a lot of failures in the very beginning of the digital transformation journey is that it come with the right step, the journey, but when you scope it, and it becomes so simple that it actually sort of advance us anywhere there, right? So that's actually one key reason. The other one actually we mentioned quite a bit is actually the people side as well, right? So just, you know, I know we talk quite a bit about the people, but, you know, it is people like the outcome, right? They understand, you know, when especially coming from the top, they actually want to actually get a performance, better. They can do a better job, but then they don't like change. People just generally do not like change to begin with. So actually, when actually sort of force that to happen, and there's actually a lot of things actually have to actually be adapted, to understand, especially when talking about automation, right? So you hear exactly a lot of things that people, oh, are we actually replacing the workers? And, obviously before anything can happen, they already actually very upset about the whole process. So sort of understanding that journey, the impact to them, and actually to be able to position their journey properly, let's say, it's not about replacing you, but actually making you super, if you will, right? Sort of make you much more efficient, make you much more effective in the, making sure there's no, reducing the error. That's really the key part of that. So,
Bassam.
Yeah, just one additional comment in addition to everything that was said. One cause for this is having an over-ambitious vision and unrealistic level of or capacity of execution. So if you have a big gap between the vision and the capacity to execute, you'll have problems.
But Daniel, I don't like the sting of making mistakes. I don't like what happens within the organization. Failure is a bad word. But if we are to venture into this digital transformation, bright new, shiny world, are we going to have to accept some of that?
Yes, we are. I can specifically talk to the issues with acceptance of cloud computing in industrial settings, and I'm sure that other companies have that challenge. But for us, bringing new services to customers, that is a big headache. And Metal Spectre, they accepted it, but other companies, they say no, we will not allow that to happen. So you have to make concessions. You have to have backup plans, and I think that speaks to where edge computing, on-prem resources are needed. They're not going to go away because there's still going to be these security trustworthiness concerns. So the cloud doesn't solve everything, and the edge doesn't solve everything, but together they can do a lot. So. I think it boils down to, like Bassam said, you had to have clear expectations up front, and you need to have, these are business decisions, and you need to sit down with the right people and talk about, what's capable, what's not feasible. And it could be a cost issue. It could be, we don't have the infrastructure for that, or, a lot of people, they don't want their IT departments to have an additional burden of offering services that are not coming from them. So they would just rather do it a different way.
But it has to happen now. The POC, and I liked what Eddie was saying. You could have a POC, and it's so small and so irrelevant. It doesn't really move the ball forward. Chaisung, how do you dial in that proof of concept to make it meaningful enough to deliver valuable results to then move forward into a more or a scalable option?
Perhaps I'd like to talk about this Bosch's presentation in IIC member meeting. And Bosch made a presentation about this automated management system for dry cargo ship. Okay, and what they did was they first start with a workshop and then try to understand the customer need, and then they come up with reaching the proof of concept. Then there comes their process, that is, rather than jumping on to apply this kind of proof of concept to the whole system level, they approach the solving problem by one, which they call as MVP, the service approach. So they try to solve one by one, and then from those MVP, here MVP means the minimum viable product, which is something like a prototype. Then you go on like a 1 or a 2 or 3 at a lab level, then you will come up with a certain conclusion. Then you actually offer that offering to the customer and get the feedback from them. And then on the basis of several run, you come up with the idea of how to scale up, then they scale up. That's what they had a presentation in IS member meeting. So I think that's the way. I mean, also in Korea, we had two contrasting companies. Leonard was interested in the failure case. So one failure case was, this is a smart factory project. And they went for changing the whole factory. And then that resulted in a failure. The other company in a similar industry, almost the same industry, went for a very divisional level smart factory project. And it turned out to be a success. Then they offered it to the one factory and it became success. Then they expanded. So there is a certain point between this Bosch's approach and also the Korean company. You go for something like experimental approach or MVP approach. Then you draw out certain picture of scaling up, and on the basis of that picture, you go for scaling up. I think that would be the way. But the problem is, normally the companies sometimes do not allow that kind of process, like MVP approach or experimental approach. That would be the problem. That would be the main challenge for the company. So how this company could allow more MVP approach or more like one-by-one approach, that would be a big challenge, and that would be the real the issue for transformation of the company. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Marcellus, I mean, we heard about the topic, or the reality is that there's a lot of changes that take place within organizations. There's time that goes by. Somebody's there and carrying the flag that we're going to go down this road of digital transformation and it's going to make our lives easier and better and wonderful. But we get into purgatory. We get into a situation where we can't get out of it. We do not advance the solution. Things are changing. From an organizational perspective, what do we do? How do we ensure that, because companies need it. Companies need it. We need to go down that road, and all the pains and pimples and all of the other blemishes have to be exposed. What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, you need, I would say baby steps is supposed to be the wrong word, but you need a strategy how you roll it out. So you not make the big bang and said, begin next year, everything is digital. I mean, it doesn't work, we're out of business. Yeah, that's the totally wrong approach. So it can be start in something nothing hurt. For example, everyone knows when you want a totally automatic process running, you need data from everywhere. This data is not just useful to control your process, it's also useful for optimizing your process from a business standpoint. You know downtimes, you know availability times, all this stuff you possibly don't even have today. So first step could be just starting adding a lot of sensors where you get all the data in you finally need anyway. And when this sensor doesn't work, then it doesn't work. It doesn't hurt your process. And that would be a first step. And when then people see how great this data, of course, you not just store the data, you analyze the data, you do something with this data. And then you find something out and say, wow, instead of that, we heard the machine is breaking down. We saw actually from the running time, they will break down in 2 days. So we have actually a preemptive solution from the maintenance to prevent a downtime. And all this little experience give people a trust that this digital transformation be on the right track. And then finally you said, okay, now we come to the controlling process. So we really say, let's use this data to doing something automatic where before humans worked. But we still have a backdoor. When something doesn't work, because the computers are down, the servers are down, the network is down, we still have some experts, they can run the machine manually. Yeah, I remember my company, we had also one time the situation, the printer broke. Yeah, and so, but we have to ship out some stuff. So finally we hand wrote the shipping papers. Yeah, I mean, this is customer service. Yeah, you send the next day an email and said, you're probably wondering why we have now handwritten emails. It was handwriting papers on the shipments, but it was important for us to show we're not stuck down in our broken IT. Customer service is everything. So you need a level for a while. What's happened when my digital transformation doesn't work as expected? And by work, you get more experience, and you starting redundancies and say, okay, when one side doesn't work, other stuff is still working. You need probably a high reliable network, not just one Wi-Fi, and when the Wi-Fi is down, everything is down. You possibly have a 6G in parallel or a 5G in parallel. The same thing with your internet connections. You have several connections, maybe several cloud providers, and all this needs growing. This is when you said from begin on, we know this is all unreliable, so we need a redundant network. Everyone say, forget it. It doesn't work. The boss already said it's not reliable. So you have to come in this slowly in the experience what you really need. And I think one of the most dangerous thing is when people believe in technology but doesn't know what to do with this technology. That means you buy some technology and force your processes, they have to work with this technology. That's a totally wrong way. The way is you analyze your processes and then you find out which technology I need. And then, of course, I'm looking for the best available, the latest one, the most innovative one, where I have the most future safety that I can use it also in some years. But that is, I think, the other critical point.
Bassam, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, a lot of things have been said so far, and they're all spot on.
My challenge has always been this,
Yeah.
and having the conversation is that there's a lot of noise out there. If I was a manufacturer that wants to go down that road, is there a roadmap that I can sort of study?
Yeah.
That tells me take this step right here.
Yeah. In fact, what is needed is two things. What is needed is a Google Maps of digital transformation, and then a TripAdvisor for digital transformation.
Yeah.
We're trying within the IIC to write the equivalent of a Google Maps for digital transformation, which is a framework that will describe all of these, but it will not give you recommendations about where you are and where you should go. What you need is a person with the right experience, with the right expertise, with the right understanding of your business and the technology implementation to guide you through that process and help you in that. You need a bit of both.
So you bring up a really interesting and a point, because this is, I see a level of velocity that exists out there in all of this stuff. And if I had a nickel, everybody talked about, well, what about your cyber side? Well, what about that? What do we got to do? If I had a nickel, there's just so many things. To Lionel's point, there's complexity out there. The necessity to find a trusted, for me, trusted advisor, Sherpa, whatever you want to call them. Daniel, is that, I mean, that's important, right?
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think, for Toshiba, that's why we've kind of started out with our existing customers, starting this digital transformation, because we had a relationship already. So that level of trust was already, pretty good, and we're able to build on that. Talking about what companies should do to get started with this, we've started taking this like 3-step approach for these service profiles. So we start out with like offering just a visualization service. Here's your sensors, here's how your motor's operating, and then if they accept that, then we can say, okay, well we can step it up and add some analytics to that and say, okay, your motors are operating, they're okay, but there might be something coming up that needs to be addressed in the future, and give, say in the next 6 months, you need to change something. And then we can step it up, more advanced. So you've got basic, advanced, high advanced kind of thing. And then you can move on up to say, hey, your motor's got such and such failure. It needs to be replaced, within a certain time frame, or you're going to lose this much productivity. So kind of it, not quite baby steps, which what Marcellus was saying, but these kind of staged approaches, basic, advanced, high advanced. We're seeing a lot more acceptance with that approach with customers. But again, it's, how do you approach new customers? That's a huge challenge. But I think some of these proving grounds are the way to go. And even within the test beds within IIC, I think those are good ways for people that are looking to see what these type of services can do. They can look to these test beds and get some valuable information.
The thing that pops into my head is, let's say I'm running a manufacturing line and I'm the head honcho, right? And when somebody comes to me and says, hey, Scott, you need to see the data. You need to be able to pull the data. You need to be able to analyze that data, and you need to be able to make tactical decisions from that data. You will be wonderful and great. The problem I have, and what I think we fell, and this is what Alfred points out, there's a security with that. It's all great. I can put these devices out there. I can do all of that, and that's all wonderful, but there's a security component there. Why is security such a problem? Why is it so hard to implement a solution? Security. Anybody? I don't know who to point to. Somebody that wants to handle that.
I'll start off by saying there's an entire security working group within the IIC dealing with those issues. And Marcellus had his hand raised. So
I'm not the chair there, but I'm also co-author of the IISF, of the security framework that the IIC is writing. The challenge of security is you very quickly to destroy everything. Everyone knows this from ransomware. There are companies that get bankrupt, they pay $billions or million, whatever, just to get go to your daily business. So the security is so, you hope on the one side it never affects me, on the other side you cannot really guarantee it doesn't affect me. And so between is what you're doing around security. And I would say security is the number one of the blocking people. When someone doesn't want a digital transformation, security will be the first thing. And there come with tons of examples where we say, look, that happened with our competitors, and this happened. And that's what never shouldn't hear. That's why I don't like it. On the other side, I would say you see this enough in cloud computing. If you have a state-of-the-art security system, you cannot be easily affected by security. So some people think, oh, it's always a way to come in. And I said, okay, when you get the last emails from Elon Musk written somewhere, or when you read something about Bill Gates or whatever thing else, they all use email every day. They all communicate with, and you never see people break in their system because they're really professional protected. So if you follow a professional security, you can make it well. But of course, you need then a security expert. You need the latest state of the art. You have to update your system all the time. And this is where people get neglect. Yeah? So when you look there's enough websites that talk about the biggest security breaches of the last years. It was mostly neglected. People forget to update this system. People had just never thought someone could come in there. No, people never thought the password of my maintenance partner is such weakness. Yeah? So this is all how you do it, and where everyone should learn. And it will be, from my understanding, a forever process. Yeah, this is the same with your security at home. Yeah, seriously, you just have the new lock installed, and the next month you read somewhere this lock is already broken. Yeah. Is this your bicycle lock? It's your home lock. Yeah, you always have to follow up with the latest stuff. It is the same with the security in digital transformation, judged by way more complex.
Yeah, it again, a theme. It's human. We don't do the right things that need to lock it down. I hope that helped answer your question, Alfred. So if I'm going down this world in this digital transformation world, I've got some clear roadmaps. I've got a Sherpa that's on my side. We're locking hand in hand, and I'm able to collect the data, and I can sort of put some sensors around it, and I can sort of do some analytics on it, and then I create a proof of concept that is not so big, but just the right size, and be able to spin off some value. The reality is that I want a return on my investment. If I'm going to scale, right, I want to make sure that I'm not going to be upside down on my investment, and I just got sucked in by the hype. Bassam, how do we ensure that we achieve the return that we want?
I don't know about ensure, but you need definitely to measure.
I don't want to fail. I don't want the sting of failure.
Yeah, you need to be able to measure the return on investment of the individual projects that you are implementing, because that will provide you with ammunition, with the people related to the executive sponsor to continue to invest in these projects. So you need to be able, for ongoing projects, black sheep, white sheep, but have started before the initiative, you may not have a lot of control over the ROI. But for new projects, part of the requirements definition and part of the business objectives have to be, you have to meet certain corporate ROI guidelines. And I'm sure Daniel can talk more about this, but they have mentioned on a number of occasions that all these so-called tactical projects, they not only have technical objectives and business objectives, but they also have ROI objectives that have to be transmitted upstairs to the financial team to be able to invest in more initiatives in the future. So there has to be tracking and management of this.
Daniel, he
Yes.
sort of gave you the baton and said you could expand upon it. I saw it. It was like right over to you. Can you
And
expand upon it?
My answer is yes.
There you go. Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. And communicating the ROI, and not just internally within your own company, right? I mean, you need to be able to validate that, because if you're doing a service offering, that's a continual process. So you need to be validating that. But also to the customer side, I mean, if you're giving them all this data information, you should be able to give them an ROI measurement too, right? You should be able to tell them here's what your service is saving you. I was at another business in Toshiba, and that was one of the service offerings they had. They were telling them, like, they had a water boiler that was failing, not that needed to be replaced, but it was, it had a part that was getting old, and part of their service was telling them what it was costing them per month to not fix that part. And it wasn't, in this case, it wasn't much. Maybe it was $200 a month because you don't fix that part. Well, if the part costs $20,000, I'm not going to fix it immediately. But over time, I can make a judgment. Okay, when do we need to fix this part? We need to make a major maintenance, outage to do it. So we're going to plan ahead, and we've got plenty of time, and we know what it's costing us approximately. So yeah, stuff like that. I mean, certainly we can do that. If we can get all this other IoT data, certainly we can provide a ROI measurement to the customer as well.
Did you want to add to that there, Bassam?
Yeah, one additional point about ROI is that your executive sponsor has a short attention span, and you need to keep that executive sponsor engaged and interested in continuing this digital transformation journey. And one key ingredient in this communication with the executive sponsor is good ROI numbers. So not only you need to manage the ROI numbers, but in fact, I read an article recently that one of the causes of failures of of digital transformation projects is the inability to communicate the success to the executive sponsor.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's important.
Yeah, what I would do is I would make bullets, simple bullets, and then if that
Yes.
executive sponsor would say, "What do you mean by that?" Then I dump a big old folder on his desk or her
Yes,
desk, and
exactly.
then it shut him down, and then we move forward.
Exactly.
Eddie, you wanted to add to that?
Just want to add a few smaller things in the sense that try to keep the KPI simple. Okay, so it's actually easy to articulate. But I've also found very useful even naming the project properly so that the KPI
Oh, interesting.
is reflected every day, right? Whether it is about energy efficiency, whether it is about lowering, the downtime, what have you, make it part of name of the project. So every time you mention that KPI reflected at all times. So it's sort of embody into it. So because sometimes actually people are so excited, they work on technology, new things and all the stuff, right? They forgot what actually really the outcome. So they have to be continually reminded this is actually what we're trying to achieve. And having that the right name, simple KPI will be very helpful.
See, I like that a lot. Marcellus.
So for one point with ROI, it's not direct, the output is more the reason. When you will increase your ROI, you have actually 2 points. You can increase your efficiency and your revenue, or you can save your cost. That's actually the difference is the ROI. And saving cost, of course, you can use the energy more efficient. You can possibly use your parts more.
Yeah.
You have less garbage or the stuff, but you can also reduce your number of staff. And that is a point where we usually overlooked, that people say, oh, they come with this new AI system. That means we are not necessary anymore. All the experts who know how you're optimizing the process. Now we have now this cheap AI system with 5 people less here. And that is, of course, is a illusion. It doesn't work when you say this, but you have to tell your staff, we do this digital transformation with you, not against you. Yeah, we want to integrate the digital transformation that you have more data available. You can really, as an expert, you're not going from machine to machine and read the numbers. You sit on your computer and really use your expert time as most efficient for the company and not be boring things. When then, of course, the guy said, oh, I'm not so smart. Can I compete with boring things? Maybe that is possibly a challenge, yeah, but this is possibly a retirement person. I don't know. But the most people will be excited after a while when they see I can work my work better. And then this is what Bassam said before, the team spirit. You have to bring all these people in the digital transformation. And when you have people that have doubts with that, listen what they say and come with good answers and not just say, oh, it will work. Because then the people say, I think I get still fired tomorrow.
Yeah. And then Daniel said, hey, keep the scope creep down. That's a big one. You gotta really be diligent on that. One remaining question. This is to you, Eddie, and I think that we're talking about digital transformation. We're talking about people. We're talking about solutions. We're talking about roadmaps. We're talking about a lot of things in this particular panel discussion. One of the areas that I'm always fascinated with is that I can grab data. I can get data. That's easy. It's the tsunami of data. And in that data, in that whatever it is, I've got to figure out those tactical nuggets that mean something to me. And that's that marriage of, and what you were talking about, the digital transformation AI, because you need that as a solution to be able to go down this road. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, so ultimately the way I think about data is actually like a supply chain, right? So think about what is actually the outcome that you want to achieve, how actually to go about doing this, and what's actually really needed, right, to actually sort of achieve that. Well, it's actually through AI, the data, and so forth. And then what are some of the ingredients? Sometimes actually, you in order to be able to achieve what you need, you may not have the data that you need, right? So you have to think about, oh, how can I actually do that? Where are the sources that we can do, or perhaps proxy thereof actually to make that work, right? So it is actually quite a bit of things that you need to do in terms of how to pull it together, who owns what, and sometimes you just have to license it for other people. But also sometimes actually what we see is that the data, like for example, when we talk about machine understanding the machine utility so that we can actually improve our own machinery, right? So suppose that you are the equipment manufacturer, you want to know exactly how is your customer using your equipment itself. This information belongs to your customer, right? And it's not something that you can easily just tap into. So how you actually having the process, for example, using some of the privacy preserving technology that's actually sort of embed and pull the information just enough about the model, the machine that you actually is how it's being used. And so the customer is actually comfortable sharing what actually they have rather than everything's about the raw equipment, because you can derive like, oh, what are they producing, how much, and how often, and all the stuff, right? So a lot of information about their business actually get exposed as well. So you have to think about it like a supply chain and how you're going to be able to gain what actually you need to actually have.
All right, round robin time.
Chaisung raised his hand.
Chaisung has a comment, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go right ahead, Marcellus.
No, not me, Chaisung.
Chaisung. Oh, Chaisung, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Thank you very much, Marcellus. Thank you, Marcel. Yeah, go.
I'm afraid I have to go back to the previous topic about ROI. I mean, the more exploratory your journey is, then ROI does not come up. So if you look at IISC's testbed results, there is a very good case. When they first start their project, they started it because it is strategically important. And then they could not actually see business value at the beginning. So that was a problem. But later it turned out, and also originally they had a certain business value, ROI, but later they realized that that's wrong. And they could see other kind of ROI. So here, this testbed, compiling testbed result report say that you could be flexible in setting up ROI or business value, expecting business value. Sometimes even business value does not turn up. But there need to be a certain continuous loop of feedback. So there is a certain dilemma of the indicator. The report says we should have, of course, indicator. But the thing is, you can gradually set up that indicator from continuous feedback over the projects. So that is quite a difficult one, because that is also very difficult one to communicate with the senior management. So this is the issue of quite a tricky issue of the journey in digital transformation. Thank you.
Yeah. Good point there, Chaisung. Let's do a quick round robin. We're running out of time here. Marcellus, what should we have covered in this particular conversation that we didn't?
I think we covered nearly everything. We covered security, return of investment, motivation, teamwork. I don't think I missed everything.
No, wow. You guys delivered the goods. Eddie, did we miss out on anything that we need to be discussing here?
Yeah, I don't think there's actually a whole lot actually we missed here. The only thing I will say is actually
I like it.
For the advice, sort of my parting advice to the attendees here is like keep things simple. I know digital transformation is actually fairly complex, and to be honest, only the very top of the organization care about actual big digital transformation journey. But for many sort of the people who are actually sort of working on that, is actually try to break it down to something that's simple, that actually sort of impact them directly, that they can actually manage and actually sort of drive that forward. Keep it simple, right? That sort of tangible outcome. Also drive morale of the people. They see the outcomes and, they get that buy-in. So actually addressing the people's problem as well. And they can see how exactly the journeys actually sort of impact them directly.
Yeah, that's sage advice. Bassam, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean we've said quite a few things in this webinar. I would add that digital transformation is not a project; it's a journey. Understand that, and we've been doing digital transformation without calling it digital transformation for a long time. So there is nothing totally
Good
new about it. But it's important to have the feet on the ground, but as well as the head in the cloud.
Good point.
Understand what is possible and what could be done, and understand what's lurking around the corner in terms of market risks and market threats and so on, and be quick on your feet to capitalize on these opportunities.
Chaisung, what do you have to add to that?
I would say I have studied GE, and the most impressive part from the CDO, Bill, was that he should have realized that culture matters as much as your journey of selecting technology or getting strategy or changing the organization. But as for changing the culture, it's really difficult. So what in IIS we have been doing is we analyze the process, the best practice processes of changing the process so that the culture could change. So as for that journey, I would invite colleagues to join together so that we could come up with a better idea of changing the culture. Okay, thank you.
Culture matters. Yeah, I put that on a bumper sticker. That means a lot. All right, Daniel, final one. I see that you have provided a link to everybody out there about digital transformation and more. Great article.
Yep.
What else do we need?
I applaud everyone else. I totally agree with the comments made. I don't know if you have the slide, but Bassam has this digital transformation journey slide that I think is just excellent and really highlights, what it is we're trying to do here. The only thing I can, add to all this is this idea of, we need to focus on minimizing complexities for humans to use these systems. And that's really ultimately what digital transformation is all about. So echoing everyone else, don't forget the human in the part of all of this.
Excellent point. Very good job. Even I got a lot out of it. Excellent job from the panel. Cheryl, are we going to be made available some of this information for people who participated on this webinar so that they can get, the links and stuff like that, or the map for Bassam? Are we going to be able to do that?
We will. We'll provide the slides, and we will break the presentations up into individual presentations so that folks can download them in reasonable chunks. And we do have a few discounts that we'll make available as well to the people that attended.
All right. Let's take a gander at that slide.
Sure.
All right. We're going to be wrapping up here. All right. People have stayed on. Thank you very much. I think the next, there it is. Great. All right. The reality is that you need to be constantly educating, especially in this particular world. You need to collaborate. You cannot have all the answers by yourself. So you need to collaborate with trusted individuals. And definitely, what I've heard from the panel, you need to innovate as much as you possibly can that brings value to your organization. To do that, you need to be a member of the Industry IoT Consortium. There's some options out there. Become a member. Get engaged. Hang out with people like Chaisung and others to be able to ask questions, because it's important that this ecosystem continue to expand, right? And then at least at a minimum to keep educated, get on the IIC mailing list for events, trainings. That's super important. Programs, everything that you could possibly imagine. And don't hesitate. Come out to industrialtalk.com. Be a part of my little mailing list. You get this plucky guy all the time, so it's all good. And also, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, there it is, info@iiconsortium.org. All right, the last little wrap up. Next slide. Now, I'm going to this. I'm going to be very fortunate, and I get to go to Barcelona, and I will be broadcasting at this particular event. What makes this event so special is that it put your hands on all of this conversation that we're talking about. They've got test beds, and you can connect face to face, touch the stuff. At this particular event in Barcelona, they do an excellent job. And I highly recommend it. If it's in your budget, make it happen. They do an excellent job. That is definitely a platinum organization delivering a solution. So you've got a little $200 value right there. Make note of that if you're interested. And then, of course, I've always enjoyed it. So you've got some good freebies here or discounts. So definitely take advantage if you find yourself heading to Barcelona. This is a must-attend event. All right. I'm done, man. I'm worn out. You guys just sort of wore me out. Thank you very much for joining once again this particular conference or this webinar. It is a journey to Bassam's point of view. It is a journey. Get on the train, start down that track, and connect with people that can definitely help you. Thank you very much for joining, and wish you all the best this afternoon.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thanks, everybody. Great job.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Toodles.